Good morning. Welcome to Goldie. Today I want to talk about two big hitters in the guitar world. One of them is a modern classic, a precision machine. You could say built to perfection even. And then the other one, we have the good old Gibson Les Paul, 1959 reissue. An old vintage icon. Huh? Maybe you just happen to be looking at both of them and you want to see which one deserves a spot in your collection. Or maybe you want both. Let me talk about this, man. For some of you that don't know the story of each of these guitars, and if you want to know, maybe I'll make another video for it. If the demand is up, or if I feel like it. You know, the Gibson Les Paul 1959 reissue, also known as the R9, this is Gibson's Holy Grail. Or based on the Holy Grail, I should say. To you nerds out there, correcting me behind the screen. Based on the legendary 1959 burst. And arguably the most sought-after guitar in history. Think of Jimmy Page, Joe Perry, Slash, etc. And then the PRS SC594. Single cut 594, and we just say SC594. This is basically Paul Reed Smith's answer to the 59 Les Paul, I would say. I don't think it's based on these modern Gibson Les Paul standards, right? And I'll tell you why. But the name 594 comes from the scale length. It's 24.594, the distance. The average distance between the nut and the saddle. I say average distance because you see how the saddles are, for intonation's sake, they are not the same distance. This is the furthest one, for example. And this is the closest one to the nut for good intonation. Now again, I say that this is not based on these modern Les Pauls. I would say this is more closer to this is more based on the old 59 Les Pauls from back in the day. Very inspired by that year of guitars. But it's built to PRS's specifications, which you could say is modern precision. So PRS launched this model in order to capture that vintage tone and that modern playability, because this thing is very ergonomic. I would say, as an owner of both of them, I can tell that the PRS is much more ergonomic. You understand? Look at the cutaway. The way the neck is attached to the body. You'll be able to tell straight away that it's easier to do some leads up here when your hand is up here compared to the Les Paul, for example. I suspect that it has to do with the neck is seated to the body a bit higher than the Les Paul. Or it could be something else. It could be just the cutaway, the shape of the heel over here. Or it could be both. Here's one thing to note, by the way. We all seem to believe that the Les Paul, including the 59 bursts and the 59 reissues, we have this knowledge that they are of the 24.75 scale, right? Now, I don't know if this is true, but Mr. Paul Reed Smith himself has said that, and you don't have to believe this if you're, Paul Reed Smith said that, why should I believe that? You don't have to. Get a handful of salt, put it in your mouth, and listen. Mr. Paul Reed Smith has said that back in the day, the 59 burst actually didn't really have that 24.75 inch scale. Because back in the day, there were variations to many things. The pickups from back then, the paths all had different, pretty wildly varying outputs because of how they wound them back in the day. I think they just wound them until they were full, or they wound them according to time, you know, or wind this for 60 seconds or whatever the actual time they used back then. The point is, back in the day, the scale length was probably around that average of 594 as well. And then maybe they just rounded it off to 24.75 inch just to make a rounded off whole number. Or a proper number. So there's that. So how's the salt in your mouth, by the way? The other part is the construction. The R9, you know the body, solid mahogany. This one, the R9, is one piece. And it has a carved maple top. The figuring would vary between model to model. The whole long neck tenon and 22 medium jumbo frets. Path style pickups. This one has the 57 Classics, I believe. Maybe even the 57 Classic Plus on the bridge. Because I measured it measured at 9.3, which I was shocked a bit because I thought paths would be about 8, around there. You know, when you think of vintage paths, that's what you think about. Then the 594 SC gives us, or the SC 594, it's a pattern vintage neck profile. It's chunky, but it feels really good because of the asymmetry of it. I suspect even it's kind of similar to this, but the R9's neck, I don't know if this will be across the board with R9s, but the R9s, this particular one has that it feels very rounded. I don't know, it's probably the same. They're both chunky necks. Not super chunky, but it's pretty good. It's comfy. That's what matters, right? Right? And so PRS's take on the vintage pickups, the 5815 LT. I'll be honest, man, they're not my favorite pickups or anything. They measure up to about 7.5 or 7.8, somewhere there. It's low wound, low turn. I like the normal 5815s better with about 8.8K on the measurement. Not that that's a reliable measurement, right? The DC resistance. Anyhow, you also know what PRS is known for. Their impeccable fit and finish. And not only that, but it's consistent from guitar to guitar. But personally, if I like how the guitar looks online, I still probably wouldn't buy it. I'll have to try it because, you know me, I like the guitar to be lively. With the R9, it's historically accurate, but PRS is more towards precision engineering and modern playability. Having said that, the R9 is very playable as well. There are going to be some little things that are going to probably matter to you, like the fret size. This one has some really tall frets, probably stock even, I would say, because I've really observed it really close up with my 20/20 vision, and I could see that the nibs on it, wait, I got confused which one's the R9, and I inspected it super closely, and I could see that the nibs match the frets perfectly, which tells me that it's either being refretted, but the frets have been matched perfectly to the knobs, or it's just stock. Modern R9s don't have tall frets like this. This has some tall frets. Like I mentioned before in another video, this one has some tall frets that I did not expect from this kind of model. When I first played it at the shop, I didn't think the frets would be this high. But when I played it and then I felt that every time I bend or vibrato, the tip of my finger would barely touch the wood. I was hooked. I was hooked, man. That was one of the things that kept me playing until slowly but surely I started considering getting the guitar. Now, let me get into more playability stuff. I would say though that the guitars are fairly similar. Could probably even say that they are twins, but they grew up in different places. There's some polarization for you. How do you like that? Chunky neck, as you know. However, I would say not as chunky as probably like a 58 or 57. Not that I played any of those. However, the first guitar I've ever owned was a classical guitar, and the neck was probably the thickest neck of a guitar that I've ever played. If I only had two guitars, the R9 and that classical guitar, I would definitely think this is a slim neck. But it's not. It's thicker than the 60s for sure, obviously. But the more you play, you'll probably get used to it. And pretty easily at that too. Having said that, it feels pretty proper though. Like you wouldn't want it any other way. I don't know, the way I see it, a 60s Les Paul with a thin neck probably doesn't seem right to me. Key piece of information there is, for me, did you hear that? Did you catch that? The R9 could also be heavier, but it just depends on the model that you pick up. Because this one is 3.9 kilos, and my SC594 is 4 kilos. 100 gram difference, which doesn't really matter. Come on. My other Les Paul standard is 4.3, and that one feels different. Of course, there are also going to be 594 SC single cuts that are going to be over 4 kilos. So it's hard to say there. So if you're looking at the online shop, see if they put the weight information there. Maybe even the balance. I don't know. They're going to be pretty balanced anyway. The SC594, they tend to balance the vintage thing and the modern comfort. They both bend very easily. The strings, I mean. To you dummies over there, to you smarties, you know what I'm talking about. You know. To me, the SC594 seems like the 59 Les Paul that is just leaner and more toned, like physically, visually toned, and more trimmed. React to that how you will. Or how about it feels like a vintage guitar that's been refined. Refined for modern hands. And let's not forget, man, I don't want you to forget too, but the headstock angle, the Gibson's 45-degree angle versus the McCarty's couple degrees angle. Can you see it, man? Here's the Gibson right here. The logo, with that beautiful gold logo. Look at that. Once again, here's the angles. You see that? Yeah? You know, I'll be taking my 2 PRSs to the gig in this Gator Pro Go something Duo. And I wouldn't have to worry about it. As you can see, the space here is a bit shallow. So if I put a Les Paul in there, I'm not going to be confident. Unlike with the PRSs, I never had to worry about it. Never. Look, there's a PRS here. Remember this guy? It's been sitting there for a long time now. Even with this one, the headstock is sort of resting on there. Probably also got the neck resting on this. But you get my point, right? I'm not worried. Maybe I should. I'd like to probably get myself an upgrade to the Enki case, double guitar case. It's a more rugged option. The back had served me well, man. I understand a number of you probably want a tone test between the 5815 LT and the 57 Classics. It's not really an apples to apples comparison because this is a low output pickup. I can hear it, I can feel it. And then that one is, it feels punchy because of the higher amount of wounds. This R9 is hotter for sure. It doesn't have the custom buckers because it's an old 2000 model. 2000. It's pretty old, man. I would be more inclined to give you a tone test of the acoustic feel, acoustic tone test. I gotta admit though, this one sounds leaner. And then the R9 definitely sounds woodier. It sounds more vocal. I'll admit that. Even though I'm a PRS kind of guy, that R9 definitely feels more lively. To me, it matters because I like to feel that in my hand, on my body, etc. I don't know about you, but it doesn't make sense to me to compare the pickups in this context anyway. If you're wondering what this black thing is here, that's some electrical tape. It helps to stop the unwanted resonance past the nut. You'll hear it when you're in distortion. Not that I use high gain, I just use enough gain so that the palm mutes will sound kind of chuggy enough anyway. Kind of like this. It's gritty enough. If you happen to be looking at both these models, man, and you're having trouble deciding, as cliche as it sounds, you're gonna have to try them. Go to the interwebs and check which shops will stock these. That's if you wanna go hands-on and try them and audition them that way, which I highly, highly recommend for my personal reasons, of course, of wanting the bodies to be lively and loud and resonant and all this. Wait for your day off or call in sick and then do a drive around for the day, trying guitars out. Wake up early so that you can have time to try out as many of them in your area as you can and actually try them out and audition them thoroughly. The R9 definitely has the vintage vibe and it has the weight of history. And then of course it's an authentic recreation of the 59 burst. The 59 burst. And you could probably argue that nothing beats the Gibson R9. I say arguably because if you can find a competent luthier that can craft you an authentic replica of a 59 burst, that's probably gonna be pretty good too. But if you want ergonomics, a modernized, super refined feel, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer with any of these, man, because one of them is a legend and then the other one is a modern masterpiece. So you have to ask yourself as well, which one really suits you? And by I mean you, I mean what band you're currently in, or if you're a working musician, what kind of music you like playing, what you're using the guitar for, which one makes you feel like playing more. If you care about how you look on stage, which one would match you. If you're gigging the guitars, which guitar matches your mannerisms, I don't know. Consider all of it. On your downtime, have a think. Have a deep think. Me, I'm still a PRS guy. However, with that R9, I just felt like it needed to be mine. Now, I've been Goldie. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Drop a comment, man. PRS or Gibson? What archetype are you? If you like all this, you know what to do. If you didn't, double click that button. Consider subscribing if you like. Ring that bell too if you want some more guitar deep dives. And I'll see you on the next video. And one more thing, man. I gotta point this out, man. But lately I got a surge of a whopping 3 followers. Mr. Rob Shog, L Funky A, and Matt Apocalypse 069. You're subscribing to me? What? Thank you guys. Thank you. Now look after yourselves, alright? GM.